Greetings, this is Rob Sanders from Simplilearn, and today we're going to talk about SEO tips and tricks. So let's get started. And throughout this series, we're going to have a few tips to share with you. And we'll start out with tip number 1, opt for smarter ways to do keyword research. And so if you listen to any of our SEO tutorials in the past, you know that keyword research is the first step, but the most crucial step in starting SEO. So when we do keyword research, we want to be able to basically find keywords that we feel are relevant to our business that we want to be found on search for. And so here are a few tips that can help you do that research in a more efficient manner. The first thing we want to do is identify a list of keywords that are relevant. So we only want to focus on relevant keywords for our business. That's a given. So what I would suggest is, as a best practice, maybe, put down some of those keywords in a spreadsheet. So think of them as a theme of keywords, because when you do research, you're going to want to include a theme of keywords related to one another so you can pick the best ones out of that theme. And so as an example, if we have a company that sells dried figs, in a spreadsheet, as an example, if I show you a spreadsheet, maybe we want to focus in on just dried fig, and maybe we want to focus in on dried fig recipes. So go ahead and put those in a column, some of these keywords that, you want to be found for. So that's really the first step. They need to be relevant, so put them in a spreadsheet so that you can build keywords around that list. Then we want to choose keywords. And when we choose keywords, we want to have some criteria around choosing them. And so we always want to choose keywords with a lot of volume. And what I mean by volume, I mean how many people on average type in that keyword or a related keyword per month. The second criteria is the keyword or product fit, meaning, is the keyword relevant? You always want to stay true to relevancy. The third is commercial intent. What is the intent of the keyword? Is it trying to get us a sale? Is it answering a question? So what is the intent of that keyword? And then last, it's difficulty. So we want to definitely take a look at how difficult a keyword is to rank for on organic search. So that's some of the criteria. You may have some additional criteria that you want to use, but this is the criteria basically for choosing keywords. So again, we want to prefer keywords with high volume. You want to be careful of seasonality. So remember seasonality. In this example, Christmas tree, you're only going to have a spike, during the winter, or the October, November, December months. So be careful of seasonality when choosing high volume keywords. And again, keywords that are relevant to your product, even though it doesn't have much search volume, relevancy always trumps volume or any other metric. Commercial intent. So we want to look at keywords that, for example, have buy in them. They may have low search volume, but if somebody's typing in that keyword, then we can insinuate that the consumer who typed in that keyword is ready to make the purchase. So we want to look at what the intent is of that keyword. And then again, the difficulty. Always opt for keywords that have low difficulty or competition. And so in order to get these metrics, we can use third-party tools. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of third-party tools you can use that will give you some of this information. So the first tool I'm going to show you is Google Ads Keyword Planner. So if I'm having a Google Ads account, I could simply go to Tools and then choose the Keyword Planner. And from there, I want to find new keywords. So if I choose the keyword dried figs, because that's the keyword I put in my spreadsheet that I'm interested in optimizing for, and then maybe dried fig recipes. That was the other keyword theme. So if I enter those two keywords in, just to begin with, basically what Google is going to give me is the average search monthly volume. So here I can see dried figs. I have an average monthly search volume, 8,100. That means on average, over the last 12 months, that's how many people have typed in that keyword. Here I can see a little bit of a trend. I just hover my mouse over that graph. I could see, again, for seasonality impact, if there is any seasonality, what the volume is on average per month. Then I could see the competition is high. And because this is Google Ads, because it's paid search, they're going to give me a sense or an idea of what I should be bidding on that keyword. Now that's another topic for another day, but it's good information to have because if you're not ranking for a keyword, you could decide to bid on it for paid search. So So don't discard the bidding information. Go ahead and put it in a spreadsheet for later use. But for now, we're focused in on keywords that are relevant, how much volume, how much competition, okay? So once I get this information here, I can simply go back to my spreadsheet and put that information in there. What's the volume for dried fig? What is the competition? Now for competition, notice that Google Ads gives us a high or low. Now, if we're trying to measure ratio between volume and competition, we want to get an actual sense of what that competition is. So what I always do as a best practice is go into Google search. If I go to Google search and I type in dried figs, I'm going to see the actual volume is 34,500,000. So I could see that's the actual search volume for this particular keyword. However, if I add a syntax called all in title before that keyword with a colon, space, and then hit enter, then I could see the actual volume reduces to 31,000. And basically what this tells me is that 31,000 listings or results have the keyword dried figs in the title tag. So if a web page has dried fig, our targeted keyword in the title tag, then ideally we can insinuate that that page is trying to rank for that keyword. So therefore, in order for us to rank #1 on Google, we have to jump over 31,000 results. So we want to be able to include this information into our keyword analysis. So if I go into our keyword analysis here and I go ahead and enter in that information. So what's my keyword? My keyword is dried figs. Okay. My volume was 8,100. My competition was 31,000. And so that gives me a ratio of 81 divided by 31,000. If I make that into a percentage, basically 26%. So that's my keyword effectiveness index, or KEI, or ratio between volume and competition. And so that's a way that you can gather information, is by using Google Ads, enter the information into a spreadsheet, and then sort all your data by KEI. You could sort it by volume, you could sort it by competition. All these metrics matter. Alternatively, as another tool, you can use Moz. So Moz has a keyword explorer tool. Okay, so if I type in the keyword dried figs, focusing on the United States, I could see that Moz says, hey, look, there's anywhere between 4,300 and 6,500 in terms of volume. Out of 100, the difficulty is 41. And so I can expect a click-through rate of 41%. And so basically, the great thing about Moz's Keyword Explorer tool is I can also look at the SERP analysis, search engine results pages, what SERP stands for, and I can analyze the SERP for a particular keyword in Moz. So I want to be able to understand what my competition's doing. So here I could see if I really want to try and optimize for that keyword, I could see what the other pages are ranked for that keyword on page 1. I can also see what local results show up for that keyword. So here I can see that we have a number of different sites listed here. So if we want to be #1, these are the sites that are basically above us that we need to climb over to be #1 on Google. So I find that the Keyword Explorer tool in Moz is very helpful for understanding your competition, as well as getting an alternative check on volume and competition, or difficulty, if you will. And so remember, we want to identify a list of keywords that are relevant. I can't stress that enough. We want to choose keywords based on difficulty. We want to choose keywords based on volume, on commercial intent, and more important, relevancy. We can also identify trends from a site search query like Amazon and know what your competitors are ranking for. So we can also go back into Moz and we can see, just by typing in some of the keywords we're focusing on, we can see if our competitors are ranking for the same keywords just by using that Keyword Explorer tool. And then another thing we want to look at is LSI, or latent semantic indexing. So that's a fancy word, which basically means we want to find keywords related to the topic of the page you're trying to optimize. So if there are other keywords on that page, then you could sway in that direction. And so when it comes to choosing keywords, you want to choose always a primary and secondary keyword. And so if we go back to our spreadsheet, it doesn't necessarily always have to be just one keyword. It doesn't necessarily have to be dried figs. We could choose another keyword that has a good volume to competition ratio. So we want to choose keywords that are always relevant. And if we're analyzing nothing but relevant keywords, then we want to be able to choose keywords that have a good ratio between volume and competition. So you always want to choose at least 2 keywords per page. We could also stay up to date on industry news, as will help you learn new jargon. So it doesn't hurt to subscribe to sites like Search Engine Watch or Search Engine Land. They have lots of good tips. So here I'll show you what one of those sites look like. If I simply just go to searchenginewatch.com. I find this is a good resource to stay up on the latest news when it comes to search engines. Here we could see why SEO and front-end developers are the perfect search marketing team. Another article about optimizing your channel, YouTube channel in 5 easy steps. So there's a lot of information here on Search Engine Watch that pertain to SEO and keyword research. We could also look at other third-party sites like Wikipedia, Reddit, and Quora, for example. So if I go to Quora, I can do a search for dried figs, and I could see what's being written about that topic. So that should give me some ideas to build a keyword, a list around. So for example, the health benefits of dried figs. Okay, are dried figs safe for diabetes? Best ways to eat dried figs. So those are all good keyword themes that we could build a keyword list around. And I did that simply just by typing in dried figs on Quora. So that's a good tip for you to leverage when you're trying to build out a keyword list. Okay, let's talk about tip number 2, which is publish high quality content to get more traffic to your website. So it's all about content. So we've already done the keyword research. We still need to kind of merge the two. But when we talk about merging the two, it's not just building content around those keywords. It's much more than that when it comes to SEO. And so that's why we always talk about high quality content. So let's talk about some of the tips that can help you create high quality content. So first tip is we want to be able to publish longer and engaging content. Longer and engaging content tends to rank higher in Google. Why? Because you have more content to work with. And when you have more content to work with, you can optimize it, you can structure it, you can insert different assets like videos and images. And by keeping it long, you're going to likely keep it engaging. And so Google tends to lean in favor of content that is well organized, structured, and long because it is more likely to be engaging for the end user. We definitely want to include those target keywords. So you want to be able to, insert those keywords into those meta tag descriptions, into those title tags, into those alt tags. But you want to work them in naturally. You don't want to force anything. Content should be naturally written because if it's naturally written, it's going to be engaging. So we want to use LSI keywords in the content. So LSI, or basically latent semantic indexing, basically just means different terms and concepts related to your target keywords. So feel free to use terms that are similar to what you're currently using. These keywords can definitely be used for SEO because they can create more visibility and potentially higher rankings because it gives you an opportunity to use keywords that are natural and work for different variations. And let's look at an example. So if you're optimizing an e-commerce category page and your keyword is one mixed shoes for men. So we want to use keywords closely related to one mixed shoes for men. For example, running shoes for men or sport running shoes for men, outdoor sport shoes or air cushion shoes. Let's take a look at an example of Amazon. So if I go to Amazon, I could see the one mixed shoes for men page. And if I look at this page, I can see a lot of product, and each product has basically some content associated with it, i.e. the title of the particular product. And so you want to be able to use different descriptors for this particular product. For example, men's running shoes, or breathable lightweight gym sport shoes, or lightweight casual sneakers, or walking casual sneaker. All of these are LSI related keywords. they're similar to what we're trying to optimize for. So you don't necessarily always have to be brand heavy or stick with one keyword. You could definitely show variation, especially on the e-commerce side if you're dealing with different products. So we want to make the content readable with the help of visuals, subtitles, and bullet points. So if you're e-commerce, you want to make sure that page is laid out properly, easy to read. Here I could see the descriptor along with the title all kind of merged together. And so there's no breakout of, okay, this is the product name, this is the description. It's kind of one all in one, which I like. It just makes it more natural sounding. Okay, and you can see these are all broken out. Pretty well laid out page, and Amazon is more or less, consistent in terms of how their pages are laid out. So make it readable, add visuals, add subtitles, add bullet points. It helps break out a lot of the content, especially if you have a long amount of content or a large amount of content. So the use of subtitles, bullet points, and visuals will help break it out, structure it, and make it more engaging for the end user. And you definitely want to write an effective and organized content in order to reduce the bounce rate. So there is correlation between engagement and bounce rate. The more you structure, the more you add visuals, the more you add subtitles, the more engaged somebody's going to be, the less likely they are to bounce from the page. We also want to share customer reviews and ratings. So if you have a web page, you sell products, even if you don't sell products, it's always good to have testimonials or some type of customer review. So if we go back to our example on Amazon and we clicked on a product, one of the running shoe products, we look here, we can see the image, we could see kind of the description. Well, I may not be so interested in buying this product. I want to know a little bit more about it. Well, that's where the breaking point comes in. That's where the decision factor comes in, where if I read other reviews, then I can possibly have my mind made up to buy this product. So here I could see that not only there are reviews, but there's testimonials. So I could see that here you could see that there's a lot of stars, and you could see the kind of the review title. These running shoes are very comfortable and lightweight. So you have a lot of different feedback. And so reading customer reviews is always helpful, because even though you're making the decision, it kind of will help sway you in one direction or another. At least it does for me. So that's the beauty of a customer review and a rating. We want to be able to use those to our advantage. And then you want to be able to update your content on a regular basis. And that goes for testimonials and reviews. You want to make sure you're always getting reviews. Because if you're always getting reviews, then that's just adding to the particular product. And so if you're always updating your content on a regular basis as well, then Google's going to be able to see that. And Google likes fresh content. Okay, we also want to include the benefits of the product. So if you're selling a product, any product, you always want to include the benefits. You want to do as much as you can to make your product engaging to the end user, enticing so that they can buy it. So in addition to customer reviews or adding content about the product, you want to include benefits. So if we go back to Amazon here, we could see Amazon lists a lot of the benefits, or one mix in this case lists a lot of the benefits. So here you could see all the descriptors about the particular product. It's got rubber sole, it's got a breathable textile lining, you get free high quality socks with every shoe. So these are some of the features, and if we continue to scroll down, we could see some of the details about the fabric type, specifics about the fabric, and there's a lot of information on this product page, even a sizing chart. So a lot of different features that will help the end user make the decision. So don't hold back. Add as much information as you possibly can, as much information as you have available. It doesn't hurt, because in the end, what you're trying to do from a product perspective is sell the product. And you can't really sell it unless you have information that's going to convince the user that this product is what they want to buy. So include the warranty, size recommendation, return policy, and some offers. So it should all be listed on the page, easy for the end user to see. So can't stress it enough. Provide as much product information as possible. I go back here. Here it has a sizing chart, what colors are available. Again, some of the descriptors. If I scroll down, here I can see some more of the benefits. Waffle rubber outsole, soft deodorant insole, Again, fabric type. It's got all sorts of information. It's got images about the fabric itself, the shoe itself, how it's structured. So a lot of information about this, and it even does a comparison. And so there's a lot of information about this particular product. So don't hold back. Add as much as you can to convince the end user. So in the case of the One Mix on Amazon, they had a sizing chart. They had an FAQ. They had additional information. What other products that customers view from One Mix? And then testimonials. So these are some of the basic bits of information you want to add on your page. If you don't have customer reviews, it's okay. Add FAQ in its place. Again, the end result is to convince the customer to purchase the product. And then build a comprehensive internal linking structure of web pages. So every product page should link to similar products. So if I go back here I could see other products from One Mix. So you should always have a linking structure so that if the end user doesn't want to particularly buy that particular product, then you have links available so they can go to another page. And then add different varieties and related short videos of the product. So if we go back to our product page, they have different varieties that they're showcasing here. They have the size chart. They even have a size convertible chart. So if you're dealing with metrics, you can go over to US metrics, feet, vice versa. You can add a video, show a video of, if you're selling running shoes, show a video of somebody working out. It doesn't have to be a full-blown commercial per se, but it could be a short 30-second video of what the shoe looks like on somebody else's feet, so that they could see somebody walking with those shoes on. So video doesn't have to be a big production. You can do it right from your phone. So review your content before you publish. This goes without saying. You want to do that. Just you make sure you include everything possible. Because when the content does get published, remember, Google's going to index that content. When they index it, it's going to show up in the search results. So we want to make sure we have all the information readily available, not only for the end user, but for Google as well. We want to be able to analyze our meta tags and URL to improve click-through rates. So this is important because the meta tags, i.e. the title tag and the meta description, and the URL is what shows up in Google search results. So if we have title tags, that's the first important element. That's what shows up in the search results. So what we want to do is we want to optimize the title tag. And when we optimize it, we want to use modifiers. And when I say modifiers, I mean, feel free to use the word best or cash back or free shipping or discount. So for example, if you're selling running shoes, 25 best sneakers or up to 70% off or free shipping or buy shoes on discount, very action oriented, but it includes these modifiers that are going to help somebody click on that link. So some tips for optimizing the title tag. In addition to the modifiers, we want to watch the title length, and we want to include those target keywords in the title tag. So remember, you're likely going to have 2 keywords to work with. You want to have at least one of those keywords in your title tag. So with the modifier, up to 60 to 65 characters in length with that targeted keyword should get you a good title tag that's going to get somebody to click on it. So let's look at an example. So if I type in the keyword best recipes for dried figs, here I could scroll down. Here's my title tag. It stands out. My URL is right underneath that, and underneath the URL is the meta description. And so here I can see some modifiers. 188 best autumn dried fig recipes, or 25 fantastic fig recipes, or 10 best cooking dried fig recipes. So these are all modifiers that are going to help somebody get the click. Get them to click on your link and go to your website. So when you don't hit the 65 character limit, if you go over that, Google's going to cut off the title tag. So we want to avoid that at all possible. So the whole idea is, like 10 best cooking dried fig recipes by Yumly. That's a good enticing title tag. Okay, takes into account a modifier, includes the targeted keyword, and is under the 65 character count. Some additional tips for writing meta description. We always want to provide a unique description for each web page of the website. So no duplicate meta tag descriptions. Every page needs to be unique. Then we also want to be specific about what we're offering. So if you have, say, you're selling headphones and you have a particular set of headphones from a different specific brand, include that in the meta description. If you have that particular product from that brand on sale, include that in the meta description. So you want to be as specific as possible. The whole idea behind a meta description is to describe the page, but also to get the end user to click on your link. So here's an example of using modifiers and describing a page. If we look at Amazon again, we can see this example here. And if we look at it on Google search results, so if I type in Amazon Bluetooth headsets, $10 are on sale. Here we can see a lot of Amazon listings in Google search. Here you can see the use of modifiers in the title tag and also in the meta description. Here we could see that, this particular headset, Bluetooth headset, is on sale, 50% off. So if something's on sale, feel free to include it. Be descriptive about the page, let people know where they're going, and use those modifiers. Don't be afraid to use numbers in the meta description. Even if it's the price itself, even if it's not on sale, but it is the price, include it. It's not going to hurt. The more information you can include in a meta description, the better chance you have of somebody clicking on that link. Use numbers, symbols, percentages off always help. Use catchy words like discount or cashback. You're competing with other listings on the page. So if you have something on sale, if it's on clearance, list that it's on clearance. Here I can see they even included the coupon code. So feel free to list as much specific information about that page as possible. The whole idea is you're competing with your own web pages, but in other cases with competitors. So the meta description along with the title tag and the URL helps separate out you from the rest of the listings on search engine results. And we don't want to keyword stuff. We want to keep it within 160 something characters or 65 characters, because Google will break off the meta description just like they do with the title tag. And so we want clean, natural, written meta descriptions that separate you from the competition. So that means including the keywords, but making sure those keywords are naturally included in the meta description. So if I go back again to valleyfig.com and I could see the meta description. Hey, welcome to the best resource online for dried fig recipes. Savory is sweet, snacks are healthy, dried fig recipes. We've got it all. Okay, start cooking with figs. And so it's natural sounding. It does include the keyword. It's not keyword stuffing. It's natural sounding. That's hopefully going to get that person to click on this particular website. Let's turn our attention to the URL. So we want to make sure that the URL is basically taking into account best practices. So if we take a look at this particular URL here, it doesn't necessarily look as attractive as we would like. So first of all, I don't understand some of it. So that makes it unpleasant, boring, and messy, to say the least. So you want URLs that, basically are clean and understandable. So in other words, we want to make them SEO friendly. Because if they're SEO friendly, somebody understands the URL, then they're likely going to click on it. So the old rule of thumb is if you can read the URL, then the search engines can read the URL. So here are some tips for creating friendly URLs for SEO. Make it readable. You want to include the target keyword in the URL. So if it's dried figs, the URL should include dried figs. If it's dried fig recipes, make sure it's dried fig recipes. Now avoid using too many subdirectories in the URLs. So we want to keep it as close as possible to the root directory and match the URLs to titles most of the time. So let's go back to our example here. Here we can see this is valleyfig.com/recipes, not necessarily dried fig recipes, but recipes nonetheless. It's in the root directory. Okay, so at all costs, now this is in some cases unavoidable, given that you may be dealing with an e-commerce website that's calling, content from a database. So if that is the case, you're going to have some dynamic parameters in the URL, which is fine. Just make sure you avoid having too many of those dynamic parameters. It's understandable to have parameters, but the rule of thumb generally is no more than 2 different parameters in the URL. So prefer to create short URLs. That's really the way to go. The shorter, the better is the rule of thumb. And, if you're going to break up the URL, then use hyphens instead of underscores. It's just cleaner. It's a more understandable. Search engines tend to read it a little bit easier if it's hyphen. So here's what a friendly URL looks like for search. You got your domain, you got a subcategory broken up with a hyphen, and then the product. So that's just a clean URL for a particular e-commerce site that has categories and subcategories. So again, we got Amazon.com. Your category can be electronics, your subcategory could be earphones, and your product could be Bode earphones. It's that simple. Let's start with talking about rich snippets. This is tip number 4. So we want to add rich snippets to improve your website's visibility on SERPs. So tip number 4 is all about rich snippets. So let's start out by asking ourselves, what is a rich snippet? So rich snippet is simply just a term used to describe structured data markup that you as a website owner can add to your HTML. So hypertext markup language, or HTML, is what basically constructs a page. So if we can add more information to that, that will in turn allow search engines like Google to better understand the information that's on that web page. So the more Google understands about that web page, the more they can put into the search engine results page. So rich snippets is basically some structured data markup that we can add to our existing HTML. And so if we want to add rich snippets to search engines, then how would you prefer your products to be displayed? Well, if we have products, then we want to make sure that maybe we have reviews, or maybe we have other information in there, like links to our site. Okay, so there's a lot of different types of rich snippets that, we can add that Google can recognize and add to the search engine results. So if you have a product, then there's a lot of things we can add, like specifically product reviews. So we want to be able to add more information to the search engine results by working in some rich snippets. So basically the whole idea is to set up the rich snippet to drive targeted traffic. Okay, so because the more information in the SERP, the more likelihood you're going to get the click. And the more likelihood that click is specific traffic. So some of the benefits of structuring the data for rich snippets are, as I mentioned, increasing click-through rates, also increasing conversion rates. So when you get the traffic from organic search to your website, if somebody's looking for a specific product and you have a number of different good reviews showing up, let's just say 5 stars out of 5 stars, and you have 100 reviews showing 5 stars, then, somebody's probably going to take some trust in your brand, and your conversion rate probability is going to go higher. It also helps improve your search engine visibility because you're adding more information. So in other words, the more Google knows about your page, the likelihood it's going to rank that page. And it's more likely that that information that's contained in that rich snippet is going to get featured in either the knowledge graph, which is that graph on the right side, or any featured snippet, which usually shows up at the top of search engine results. So in other words, the more information you give Google, the more they can use that information on their search results page. And there's no disagreeing that the more information that you have in your search engine result, the likelihood of getting more traffic increases. So for rich snippets, you could always start with images. So some of the common properties that you can add to your product page, if you have a product page or just a page itself, is an image. You can always start there. You can always add a description. You can always add in ratings, and you can always add in reviews. So these are some of the most common attributes you can add as a rich snippet. So if you add that, Google picks it up. It's going to include that information in the search results. Okay, some others are offers, prices, site links, links to your site, and product availability. So all that information can be conveyed to Google. Google understands what you're trying to pass along. It's going to include that in the search results. So did you know that according to Ahrefs, over 99.58% of featured pages that have structured data already rank in the top 10 list of the Google search results page? So in other words, if you have rich snippets in your page, your chances of ranking in the top 10 of a Google result is going to be very, very, very good. Okay, let's talk about tip number 5. Optimize your site structure for a great user experience. So let's go over some of the tips that you would do for planning a good website for SEO. And so tip number 1 is you want a URL structure that follows your site's navigation hierarchy. So obviously home page, interior pages. So depending on what type of site you have, obviously the navigation needs to follow that site's navigation, that site hierarchy. And it all starts with the home page. You want to optimize your home page to drive traffic to your product pages. So the home page is nothing more than a doorway into your website. And so the site's navigation should link to all those different products. So if you have an e-commerce site with subcategories or categories, subcategories, then you want to be able to make sure your navigation reflects that. You want to build a comprehensive structure for internal linking as well, because when you're from the home page, obviously you want to be able to easily navigate to other pages. However, when you're on other pages, you want to be able to have a link pointing back to relevant pages and not necessarily on the home page. So this serves two purposes. One, for the end user. Obviously, you want the end user to navigate through your website seamlessly, right? Second, for the search engines. They're following links. They want to be able to understand how your website flows and links together. So you don't want a scenario where it's a one-way street from the home page to interior pages. You want basically home page to interior, interior to other relevant interior pages. And that could be a lateral, or that could be a situation where it's a hierarchy. For example, homepage, category, subcategory, subcategory, etc. You want to be able to make sure your site is constructed in a manner in which the search engine can read it. So CSS or cascading style sheets or hypertext markup language, HTML, are your two most common languages. That's basically what browsers load. That's what search engines like to index. It just makes it easy for them to understand what your page is all about. Remember, we talked about rich snippets in the previous tip. Rich snippets are nothing more than supplemental HTML to describe what the page is all about, so that the search engines can understand that page and include reviews or include site links in the search engine results. So this is all based on HTML. So the more you provide the search engines in a more structured manner via HTML, the more the search engines are going to understand the page. Adding breadcrumbs to your product pages is also a good practice. If you have an e-commerce site and you have a category, then a subcategory, then a subcategory, then a product page, well, it's probably not a bad idea to make sure you have a breadcrumb so that way somebody can easily go right back from the product page to, say, the category page or to the subcategory page directly without having to hit the back button or having to go through the navigation. Some good examples, I think Amazon does a good example of using breadcrumbs, given the amount of products they have on their site. So go check out Amazon if you want a good example for breadcrumbs. And then canonical tags. We want to make good use of canonical tags, and that's in order to avoid duplicate content. So a canonical tag is nothing more than a link element, basically, or an HTML element that basically prevents duplicate content issues. So in other words, if we have a canonical tag as a meta tag, basically we're telling the search engines, this is the preferred or canonical version of a web page. So use this web page. So it signals to the search engines which page they should basically index and pay attention to, and avoid all the other pages that have similar content. So that's the idea behind a canonical tag. So that's a good best practice. And then optimize your site for desktop and mobile. I can't stress the mobile part enough. Most users begin their journey on mobile. So if you're not sure about what the search engines like or don't like, you can always refer to Google Search Console for an example. So if you go to Google Search Console, they have a report called Mobile Usability. So if you click on Mobile Usability, you can see what pages they like, what pages they don't like from a mobile perspective. And if you have errors, they're going to tell you what those errors are. So if your website has text that's too small to read, they're going to tell you that these are the pages with this error. And so that allows you to go and address those errors, because from a Google perspective, if a page has a mobile usability error, then Google will not index that page. So leverage Google Search Console to get a sense of what type of errors your site has from a mobile perspective. You also want to prefer to keep your checkout page simple. So again, from an e-commerce perspective, you want to keep the checkout page as simple as possible for obvious reasons. You want the end user to have a good experience, and you obviously want the conversion. So when I say keep a checkout page simple, really now with today's technology, you can create a one-page checkout process. You want to optimize your sitemap. So when we talk about sitemaps, we want to make sure that it's a file, an XML file that basically includes all of our URLs. And we can then turn around and give that sitemap to the search engines. So if you have a sitemap in XML, make sure you go to Google Search Console. So if I go to Google Search Console and I click on sitemaps, I can just simply tell Google where my sitemap is located. And when they recognize that sitemap, they're going to be able to basically index the URLs from that sitemap. So we could see here how many URLs they discover and how many they index. So make sure you create the sitemap in an XML format, submit the sitemap via Google Search Console, and then you can go back and see how many pages they've indexed versus how many you've submitted. And you want to make sure that sitemap is dynamic, meaning anytime you publish a URL, that URL is added to the sitemap. Fixing broken links. So broken links is not something you want, but it's something every website has. It's unavoidable. People publish pages all the time. There's test pages. There's all sorts of reasons why a site has broken links. You want to be able to address those. And again, going back to Google Search Console, we can basically see, just by looking at some reports, what pages have broken links and which ones don't. So we could certainly look at Search Console to get information about basically what pages are broken, which ones aren't. And then we want to prefer predictive searches and integrate product typographic errors on your search bar. So basically have a search bar that's a best practice, but anticipate knowing what people are typing in. So that means maybe going into Google Analytics and looking at the search terms report. So we can go into analytics and look at search terms to get a sense of what people are searching for. But, when we talk about integrating product typographic errors, we're talking also about fonts. So we want to make sure we're using the latest fonts so that we don't run into any issues on our website, people not being able to read based on a specific font that you're using. And then as a best practice, what I found, and this is not necessarily for everyone, but using a live chat widget sometimes helps. In fact, I would even go beyond sometimes, most of the time, again, depending on your business, but I see most businesses now have live chat enabled. And so basically having live chat enables somebody who has a question to immediately reach out to somebody versus picking up the phone versus sending an email. It's just instantaneous gratification in some ways. So inserting live chat on a website is more common practice than not nowadays, given it lends to a better user experience. Tip number 6, improve your page speed and reduce the bounce rate. So let's talk about page speed and how page speed correlates with higher bounce rate if it's a high page load. And so according to Crazy, page speed is an important overlooked SEO tactic because for every second delay in page load can result in 11% fewer page views, 60% decrease in customer satisfaction, 7% decline in conversion rate. So, you can see here, regardless of how specific the numbers are, when you have a page that loads slow, you're going to have lower user engagement and a poor user experience. So you have to pay attention to page speed. And so since 2010, Google has been using page speed as a factor for page ranking in the search engine results. So here's some tips to focus on making sure your pages are optimal in terms of speed. So enable browser caching. Okay, you can reduce plugins if you're using WordPress as an example. Disable plugins you're not using. Using a simple website design, going back to tip number 5, stick with CSS and HTML. Don't do anything fancy in terms of technology because it's only going to complicate matters. Optimize your code, minify files, meaning, hey, if you're not using any code, just get rid of it because code has to execute and that slows down page load time. So if your website has numerous CSS and JavaScript files, basically minify and combine them. And that's what we're talking about there. You don't necessarily need a lot of, JavaScript on your page. You can leverage Google Tag Manager or, other features that help minimize the number of JavaScript files you have. And so you can also get some of these ideas by going into Google Analytics. So in Analytics, under behavior, under site speed, under page timings, you can basically see how quick each page loads. And then if you click on speed suggestions right below page timings, what happens is Google's going to actually give you some suggested ways to increase speed. So if we let this report load, we'll be able to see some speed suggestions per page. And so here you can see, for example, the home page has an average page load time of 4.89 seconds. You can see right next to that, we have page speed suggestions, 7 total. So if we click on that, basically what it's going to do is going to launch another Google product called PageSpeed Insights. And what PageSpeed Insights is going to do is it's going to analyze the page in question, whether that be the home page or an interior page. And what they're actually going to do is not only analyze the desktop version of your website, but also the mobile version. And so now we can see opportunities to improve our page speed by making sure the images are properly sized, making sure server response time is changed. Again, defer unused CSS, not using CSS or getting rid of CSS or minifying it. So there's lots of things you can do. And again, this is desktop and mobile. So on the mobile side, we could see some of the other issues too that are causing high page load. And so analytics, site speed reports, page speed insights are good ways to get an idea, really excellent ways to really address page load time issues. So again, these are just some of the common issues with page load time. There could be other factors. So leaning on those page speed insights reports will definitely help reduce page load time. So basically, according to Google, a website should have, time to first byte lesser than 200 milliseconds. Milliseconds is very, very fast. So in case your website is slower than 200 milliseconds, such as 500 milliseconds or more, you need to improve it. So you don't even have to measure it by milliseconds. You can even go by seconds, which is what most of us count time. And again, you can see that simply going into the speed suggestions report in Google Analytics. So ideally, in terms of seconds, you want something that's about, 4 seconds or less, 3 seconds or less, obviously as fast as possible. So case study, Walmart. Walmart reported the following results. So Walmart experienced a 2% increase in conversions for every 1 second of page speed improvement. So think about that. There's definitely correlation between page load time and speed. So in conversions and user engagement. So the quicker your page loads, the higher the engagement. So with that improvement, they also experienced an increment in revenue. So meaning the pages load, people had a better user experience, they were able to check out easier, and that led to more revenue. So they were able to measure revenue against milliseconds. And that's something you can certainly do in analytics. You can correlate revenue with bounce rate. You can correlate revenue with page speed. Tip number 7, build quality links and increase the domain authority of your website. So Google's top 3 search ranking factors includes link building. So you need to have quality links from quality sites pointing to your site. And so that's a factor in terms of ranking. So that falls under off-page SEO. You need to build references and links on quality sites. And so building quality links to your content can give your product or category pages or even content or blog posts a boost in the SERPs. So it's all about quality over quantity. So it's always building quality links, not quantity. So let's talk about what kind of strategies you should implement. So if you implement these strategies, then you're going to likely see a lift in the SERPs. So earn backlinks from relevant and authoritative web pages. So what's authoritative? Well, authoritative is subjective to some degree, but it's also measurement in others. So you could use Moz as a good tool to measure page authority or domain authority. So if I go into Moz, Moz has a page and domain authority score between 1 and 100. And so you can actually see what sites have good domain or page authority just by entering in the domain. So relevant, you obviously want to rank to something that's relevant. So if you're in the food industry, something food related. You want to promote your content regularly on social media. So social media, I always consider it a whole low-hanging fruit when it comes to backlinking. You know, there's so many different social media platforms available. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. There's so many varieties from images to Pinterest and Instagram to video, being YouTube. So there's lots of ways to get your content out on social media that will allow you to not only promote your brand, build a community, but also establish a reference back to that page. You can opt for guest blogging. Okay, so you can reach out to another blogger and blog on that platform. And it can be reciprocal as well. A blogger can certainly, blog on your platform and have a link back, and it works both ways. Influencer marketing. So influencer marketing is working with somebody who has a large amount of followers who can influence those followers to, mention you in a hashtag, link to your particular product or brand, or even drive traffic to your site. So you want to take advantage of social media platforms and start your own page as well. So Facebook's a good example. It could be having a YouTube channel. If you're into video, you can certainly set up a YouTube channel, build a following around YouTube as well. So always start your own page if that's the platform of choice. The last thing you should do is set up a page on social media and not keep it updated. You can certainly participate in forums. You can participate in other websites like Quora or Reddit that's very, content-based, content-driven, user-driven. I always recommend starting your own blog. Blog is a good way to not only generate content, but it's a good way to incorporate different types of content. So you could set up different types of content and categories. It's a good way to incorporate different assets like images and video. It's a good way to get users engaged by having comments or having social share buttons. It's a good way to leverage that content onto other social media platforms. So there's lots of benefits to blogging. Very few cons. The only con would be a time constraint. But it's better to have one blog post in 1 month consistently than not blogging at all. So getting listed on high quality link directories like Yahoo directory is still a way to add a link from a high quality site. And then make use of broken link building. So again, on the last tip, we mentioned Search Console. Search Console certainly has reports available for you that allow you to see what pages on your site are no longer there and allow you to see what pages they're linking from. Okay? You can also do testimonials. There's lots of ways to generate quality links. In a way, you almost have to get creative, but creative in a way that's going to generate quality, not quantity. Quality is the key. So even if it's one source, whether that be somebody else's blog, so be it. As long as it's quality, that's what counts. So let's talk about some of the key takeaways from today's tips. So remember, tip number 1, we want to opt for smarter ways to do keyword research. So remember, we want to look at volume. We want to look at competition. We want to create themes, put them in a spreadsheet. So we want to be smarter in the way in which we choose our keywords. Tip number 2, remember, publish high quality content to get more traffic. When we say high quality content, remember, break up the content, use different assets, organize it, structure it, make sure it's answering somebody's questions. Then we talked about in tip number 3, analyzing your meta tags and URLs. details. So we want to make sure that title tag, meta descriptions are creative. Use modifiers like numbers or promotions. We don't want to go over character counts. We want to make them unique and distinct so that somebody clicks on them. Then we talked about rich snippets in tip number 4. Remember, rich snippets are just additional HTML that communicates to the search engines. So the search engines can understand exactly what's on your page. So if you have recipes, if you have reviews, if you have videos, if you have images, if you have ratings, all these things can be added to the SERPs just by communicating with the search engines via rich snippets. Tip 5, optimize your site structure. We want to make sure that you have good inbound links. You want to make sure you incorporate breadcrumbs. You want to make sure users can navigate your site more easily. And then in tip number 6, if your pages load fast, then it's going to enhance the user experience. It's going to increase user engagement and increase conversions. And then tip number 7, we want to build quality links. Quality to increase the domain authority. So remember, we can use mods to measure domain authority. It's all about quality, whether that be via influencer marketing, guest blogging, directories, social media, setting up a social media page. There's always something you could be doing to generate a quality link to your website. Thank you for attending today's session. If you have any more information, please visit Simplilearn.com. Thank you.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.